Hey everyone, I'm Katie Paris. It is so good to be with you tonight. I am live and in person here with my mother-in-law, Deborah Paris. And we also, LaFonda, introduce yourself.
Hi, everybody. I am LaFonda Cousin. I'm the Chief People Officer here at Red, Wine, and Blue, and I'm excited to be on tonight.
Yes. And then, hello down there in North Carolina, Mama. That's my mom, Dr.
Hi,
Stephanie
everybody.
Citron. Say hello. Hello. All right, everybody. We are so glad to be with you tonight. I'm the founder of Red Wine and Blue, and most of y'all know we are a community of over 600,000 diverse suburban women working together every day to stand up against extremism in our own backyards and all across this country. And you know what? That can be exhausting. That can feel chaotic. That can feel overwhelming. And, we originally had this event scheduled for a couple of months back,
End
and
of October.
we had a death in the family on the Paris side of the family, and so we delayed this. And so we thank everyone for all of your sending love and support, and also just for your patience. And then, of course, we thought, well, when are we going to schedule this? And is the timing going to feel right at that point? And lo and behold, of course, we had two mass shootings over the weekend, the one at Brown University, the one in Australia, of course, targeting members of the Jewish community. And I think, once again, this is sadly an appropriate need. It feels like day in and day out. And I know that look, I wore my Good Moms Make Good Trouble t-shirt for the event tonight because I am certain that good moms make good trouble. What I am less certain of is how to hold it all. I came home from school today. No, I don't go to school. I work. One of my children came home from school today, and it was a hard day. And I found my stress, by elevating around that combined with everything we face in the world and all of life's stresses. And it's real and it's a lot to hold. And the two women that we have joining LaFonda and me tonight are two people that I am lucky enough to get to look to in my day-to-day life. My mother is a psychologist. My mother-in-law is a therapist who has a practice completely focused on children. So as a mom carrying a lot of stress, it's like I've got some resources in my life, and I want to share them with you. We have done events together in the past. Sometimes you and me have done them focused on questions that a lot of us have around raising kids in the midst of all this. And we've done other events, Mom, with you, when we've talked about how do we ground ourselves. We did one immediately following the election with both of you. And LaFonda and I wanted to do one together with you all because of the podcast we've been hosting called How to Not Lose Your Shit, which we need help with
Hmm.
lately. And also because LaFonda and I happen to be the exact same age, but we have our children are very different ages. And that
Hmm.
brings up very different issues that
Three
we know
different
could be
questions. Yeah.
reflective of like parents and grandparents, parenting and grandparenting through facing all of this at different phases of development.
Right.
And so we thought that we could both get our questions asked tonight, and we're going to leave time for some Q&A as well. So, LaFonda, I don't remember how we were supposed to open it. Did you have anything else to say to get the conversation started before we kick it off?
Yeah, no, I think you opened it really well. Like you said, we have kids of very different ages. I have an older child. I don't know, can I call her a child?
You can
My
call her
daughter.
whatever you want.
He's always your
They're
child.
always a child. She still follows me to the bathroom, y'all. So there's that. My daughter is 23, and so, there's still that feeling of anxiety when they're out navigating the world, but also that feeling of anxiety when some of these issues come up. She was, on campus she went to college in Atlanta, and anytime that there are these incidents on college campuses, that raises a level of anxiety in you as a parent. And there were incidents that were close to her at when she was there. So she's graduated and she's home now. And so that gives you a little bit of peace, but you're still having to have some of those conversations. And so, with that difference in the age of our kids, there's still some of those questions. And we know that you guys have questions, no matter how old your kids are. And so I'm happy that Stephanie and Debbie are here to have that conversation with us tonight.
Yeah. And we're grateful to everyone who is joining us on Zoom and will listen to this later. At Red, Wine, and Blue, this is a community. We show up to, have an impact on voter turnout, to stop extremism that might be going down at our school boards, our city council, to get together if we need to stand up in a federal fight. But we are full human beings. And being in community together means that we recognize that and we show up for each other as full human beings and all
Mhm.
that we bring. And so we're just glad that you came here tonight and can wrestle with the fullness that life has to offer, because we know that that is going to, I'll speak for myself. I know that's going to make me more able to be the mom I want to be, making the good
Mhm.
trouble as a role model for my kids, hopefully on most days. And, as a woman trying to, just do my very best. Okay, so with that, let's dive in. Okay, so this question is, I think we're going to start with you.
Okay.
Okay, so I could go on and name all the things that we are living in a time where children of all ages are exposed to political violence, gun violence, war. I mean, I have my young children asking me about Ukraine,
Ukraine.
asking me about Gaza. From your perspective, what kind of impact is this having on kids today? And how does it show up in their behaviors?
Well, there's no way it can't have an impact on them now, partly because social media has changed the conversation. They are hearing things at home, they are hearing things at school, regardless of their age. It used to be that there was a 7 o'clock news where you heard, I was just thinking about this afternoon about Kennedy's assassination. That's when I was young, but you had it contained. It's not contained now, it's all over. And I think for the kids, their children have a different ways of handling things at different stages. But in general, and it's true for adults too, when we're overwhelmed, we either shut down and stop taking in, or we get overstimulated with all of it and have to get rid of it somehow, either through body motion in young children, in passing it on to other people and other peers in teenage years, and in the adult life. It's sort of they can get immobilized because that's a time of transition. And in times of transitions, kids can just sort of freeze up and not know what to do with all of it. So what we're really talking about is both the quality of what's coming in at them and the quantity of what's coming in at them.
Mhm.
And I'm glad you're starting with me, but what I want to say about what Steffi's going to be talking about, for you as parents, what's so hard is you are the gatekeepers. You are the ones that have to modulate and regulate your emotions to help the children. It doesn't work if we're flooded and then we flood the kids. So this is a good partnership, Steffi, because it really goes hand in hand. And what will show in kids, and the time, you can tell me when you need me to stop, but what shows in kids often shows in behavior. Behavior has meaning. So there can be changes in behavior and changes in sleep, changes in learning, changes in peers, changes in outbursts, changes in eating. That will often show that kids are stressed. And it's sort of crisis and opportunity. It gives you a chance to address what's going on. So does that answer that piece of it for you?
It does, but I'm gonna want to go more into the how I think some of us like we want to engage, we want to support, but we're going to talk about the how
We'll get
in
there. We'll
that.
get to the how.
But first,
Yeah.
LaFonda, let's go to your first
It's
question.
actually, you touched on, and it's leading me to my question. So, as adults, we feel, and I feel some of this very often, right? We feel anxious or angry or helpless about a lot of things that are going on. And so, even in the conversations, like I said, I have an adult daughter. She has very strong opinions about what's happening in the world. And if I'm feeling that sense of stress or anxiety, or if I'm feeling helpless about some of the things that are going on, what can I do or what can parents do to sort of manage their own anxiety, regulate their own emotions around what's happening so that they can show up calmly for their children or show up consistently for their kids in these moments.
So that's for you, Mom.
For you,
Okay.
Stephanie.
Okay. So just like Debbie said, that it really is a regulated mom that can help regulate a child, whether it's a young child or an adult child. And so it's different when we work with ourselves than it would be when we work with our children. And we're responding. It's a kind of trauma that the world's on fire, right? That and for us, we have us personally, we could be on fire with our own personal stuff on top of the world being on fire,
Mhm.
right? And I don't know about you all, but that tends to bite me in the middle of the night. And I can wake up and just feel this deep anxiety or fear or grief or anger.
Mhm.
And so I think that I have like Resmaa Menakem talks about in The Quaking of America, which is really about the world being on fire, about how to go through kind of a four-step way of regulating your own emotions. And it is not pretty. I wish I could tell you it's just like a good, sweet thing. The first thing that you want to do is get yourself quiet. And that helps. That's one good thing about in the middle of the night. It is quiet, right? And so I get myself quiet and really try and just settle my body enough to maybe just like take some breaths. But then I really have to slow it down. I'm going to notice what I'm upset about, and I need to slow it down in my body. I can't make it go away, but I can slow it down. Then I really want to notice the sensations in my body because that is how we hold all of those difficult emotions and thoughts and anxieties is to really notice what's happening. And maybe we'll notice a tightness or our heart beating fast or just an incredible heaviness or vibrations coming through. But to be willing to stay with it, to notice it, and to believe that our body actually can metabolize it. Our bodies are created to metabolize the emotions and sensations and thoughts and feelings of that kind of stress and to trust it, to stay with it and actually let ourselves feel it. So it's like being you can't go through it. You can't without being in it and being willing to slow it down enough to be in it and let the body metabolize those hard things and just let it be until it's finished. And it will be temporarily finished. It might come back, but to really allow it and to trust that we can get through. So
What was number 4?
That was number 4.
That was
that was
4?
number 4. I mean, the first thing is
I'm taking notes.
the first thing is you're gonna quiet yourself
Mhm.
and settle your body. Then you're gonna slow it down.
Notice what I'm upset about. Slow
And
it
then
down.
you're gonna notice the sensations that go with all of those difficult feelings and thoughts. And then you're going to accept the discomfort. You're not going to try and make it go away. You're not going to try and get it to go away in 3 deep breaths, or you're not going to make it go away quickly with a gratitude affirmation about something that happened good that day. But because it doesn't work that way. It's not
Okay, but
that.
I have heard that on average, if you really stick with it and allow your body to feel it, that it can be about 90 seconds. Like, have you ever heard that, Mom? Like, I've heard that
Well,
sometimes,
that's the 90 seconds in terms of sensing into something that is positive. This is really a deeper one, and you've got to allow yourself some time. And this is not the 90-second clock. This is not, I don't have a 90-second
I
thing for
always
you.
want the
I'm
rules.
I'm
Hard and fast
sorry,
rule.
Katie, I know you're always wanting to go
But
fast.
I
I
think
do
You want
too.
it
But
fast.
guess
I
what?
do.
You don't
Instant
get to.
gratification.
You don't get to. This
LaFonda's
is
laughing.
Katie
She's
said,
like,
fix
"Oh,
it
this is
right
what we
slowing
gotta
now.
it
deal
down.
with."
This is slowing it down, accepting the discomfort, trusting, just like grief, trusting that
Yeah.
if you can allow your body to metabolize it and take the time it needs, and you can honor it,
Yeah.
it can
Mhm.
move through you.
Can I just add on to that from
Yeah.
the child perspective because it fits so perfectly? We're working with children to be able to tolerate difficult things and difficult
Mhm.
feelings. And they use their bodies a lot to handle that. But I think as parents, what we want to do is make it all better, which we cannot do.
Yeah.
So being able to sit with an uncomfortable sensation and feeling, body or mind or feeling, is our goal.
Yep.
Because
Mhm.
that way, all the secondary stuff, trying to get rid of it, calms down. So it
And is it
hand in hand, Steffi.
and is it also, practicing almost on ourselves of sitting with our own discomfort so that we can sit alongside our child? Like that kind of makes sense to
Yeah.
me.
Yeah, totally. And I think what's hard when your child is having a feeling, you not only have a feeling about what your child is having a feeling about, you have a feeling about the fact that your child is having a feeling.
Totally.
So
Yes.
it's got a spin
That's right.
cycle going. So
Hmm.
the degree to which you can get in control or get in touch, not in control of, get in touch with what Steffi is talking about is the degree in which you'll be able to be with your child rather than at your child.
Mm. See, and this is so counterintuitive, I think, actually, because it's like I think that there's a fear. I think I feel scared of like fully accepting and sitting that discomfort for myself because it's like, how long am I going to have to be here? That's why she's looking for the 90-second rule. And
Hmm.
I do know because I have done this and it's not comfortable, but it does work. And I think that I need to practice it more, and that's going to make me more present with my kids because what's worse than my own discomfort? Experiencing my kids,
Kids, yeah.
right?
Right.
Yeah.
And so it's sort of building up our own tolerance for that so that they can
Well,
learn this skill as well.
and there's a
I think.
certain muscle for us as adults and for children in learning that you can tolerate hard
Hmm.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that builds muscle. So it's sort of crisis and opportunity. How do we help them build the emotional muscle as we're trying to build it in ourselves? Because that is a skill set for the rest of their lives, regardless of what stage they're in. And as parents, we're always trying to rescue our kids. This isn't a question of rescue.
Yeah.
This is a question of being with and understanding. So it's
So
important what that mutuality between parent and
So
child.
my next question was going to be, you actually answered it. It was sort of more, is it like, why is it so important for parents and caregivers to talk about these topics, these issues, the uncomfortable, rather than to shield them? And I think you've given us the answer to that. But can we get a little bit more into the how? Because I think that, okay, so sometimes our instinct can be to, all right, I'm going to tackle this issue. I'm going to go in there. I've sat in my own discomfort. Now I'm going to go in their discomfort. And, it's like, how do we come alongside? And can you also talk through a little bit about how this varies for different
Yeah.
stages of development?
First, let's start with what's our goal. Our goal is anything that can be talked about can be understood and mastered. So part of what you do is try to work on how do you get a conversation going. And I think it's one of the hard things for a parent is, well, what am I supposed to say? The first thing we do, regardless of the age, is what you would do with a friend. You say, well, what have you heard? What do you know? What do you think? Because then you know what you're responding to. We're not giving a set piece. This is how to think about it, or this is what happened, or this is what I've heard, or this is what research shows. We're talking on a very one-to-one individual thing with our child about what they're thinking, what they're feeling. Now, easier said than done because children often don't want to talk about things and are entitled to have their own protective mechanisms. So a conversation with a child is not I say something, they say something all the time. Often it's I say something and then you see a piece of behavior or you get a response 3 days later. I usually think, a couple of weeks for a conversation and it's an ongoing conversation. But when we know these major things have happened, like the shootings, we raise it. We say, we've heard these hard things have happened. What have you heard? What have your friends saying? What do you think made that happen? Okay, so that's part of the how, but then you're saying, how do you help a child with that? First of all, the verbalization. And this is going to apply to the different stages of development, how we do it, because different kids at different stages need more reassurance. The younger the child, the more they need to feel the safety of their first community, which is their family or their caretakers or their place of faith or their school, where we try to say, you're connected, we have adults looking out for you, you're okay. I think I've said to you before, when Steffi and I were growing up and there was the atom bomb scares, we were taught to hide under our desks.
Mhm.
Now, that's not really effective against an atom bomb, but it made us feel that we were doing something and we could be safe. And we want to, and that's one of the reasons about regulating your own anxiety, because we want to communicate to the children, no matter how bad it is out there, that they will be taken care of, that it isn't their job to do it. On the other hand, when kids are made to feel too passive, we want to look for a place where they can be active. A food drive, a writing a letter, a drawing a picture, something that takes what's being done to them into an activity, which is sort of a red, wine, and blue thing. Now, for older children, you have adolescents, you have young adults. They are smart. They are hearing what's happening, but they do not have a sense of context yet and a sense of their own lives yet. So we don't want to, say hide under the desk to a 16-year-old or a 23-year-old. But what we want to say is there is a context to this. There are things that we can do, and we want to speak to where they are in their stage of development. Teenagers, they're in a stage where peers are incredibly important, and sometimes organizing around peers, or sometimes defending against the bad things by getting excited about the prom or getting excited about makeup. That's actually protective and okay, as long as it doesn't spill over into a withdrawal of other functions. They need to be able to learn, they need to be able to eat, they need to be able to sleep, they need to be able to connect to people. So you sort of support the adolescence being an adolescent. Now, for the 23-year-old young adult, they're facing a different thing, which is the
Mhm.
transition from adolescence into adulthood. And there are so many things that are hard about that right now. What's happening with AI, what's happening with job market, what's happening in the world. And what we want to do is shrink it down. All we need
Mhm.
to do is figure out a next step. And both for the adolescent and the 23-year-old, we want to provide them with a sense of future. And a lot has been going on to take that away from people, but there's lots of ways we can put it in. And I think when you shrink it down to we don't skip steps, we go to the next step. You don't have to know what you're going to be doing 5 years from now. You just need to know what you're doing next month. And actually, it helps control the anxiety. It shrinks it
Yeah.
down to a manageable size. I'm going to stop, but we can go more if you want.
Yeah.
Okay? Does
Um,
that answer the
yeah,
question you had?
absolutely. Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. And I also want to acknowledge people are really sharing important things in the chat, and
Okay.
we are
Mhm.
going to be having a time for Q&A. Our colleague Julie Collins is tracking these questions, and thank you so much for
Mhm.
sharing in the chat. It makes all of us feel less alone and supported. And so
Yeah.
thank you for your vulnerability with each other. LaFonda, did you have a question or I was going to?
Yeah, I mean, I think that what I was hearing earlier in the conversation and even now, like taking that time to um like go through those steps and breathe and just sit with your own emotions. Like I think that really resonates with me, right? Like you have to sit in your own emotion. You can't speed it up. You can't bypass it. That to me says that what I'm hearing from that is that doing that means I'm not projecting. And I've made that mistake as a parent, right? Like I want to talk about it right now. I want to get it out because I'm feeling that heaviness. And
Right.
so I feel like you're feeling that heaviness. So, like, let's talk about it. But then, where I feel like that conversation ends up going is that I feel like I'm projecting my emotions onto um, my child at that point,
Right.
even when she was younger, and especially now that we're in that adulthood and she's kind of getting her own feelings about some of these things. If you're in the middle of a conversation like that and you feel like you're in that moment where you're like, maybe I'm projecting a little bit, how do you back out of that conversation and say, I think we need to come back to this? Um,
Can I just jump in, Stephanie? I'm sure you have things to
yeah.
say. I think, as we're talking about being contained and regulated, but we also want to be real. And is there a parent out there that hasn't blown it? I
Mhm.
mean,
Not me.
no, no. I used to
Do
say
it
to
all
my
the time.
children, pretend you're well adjusted. It's good for business.
Right.
We're people. And actually, particularly with a 23-year-old, it's really good to acknowledge yourself as a person that,
Yeah.
I got anxious and I think I dumped my anxiety on you. Let's walk it back. I'm working on not having that happen. And I want this to be about you and your feelings. It really acknowledging a negative or a difficulty is a great opener
Mm.
for a relationship with your teenage and adult kids.
Yeah.
You just need to be real and it will be fine. It isn't like we have to do it perfectly. It isn't like we have to say exactly the right thing all the time.
Yeah.
We're feeling our way and we're having a conversation with them, not at them.
Mm.
And that takes time.
And they need to learn how to make mistakes and acknowledge them too. So
Absolutely.
you
Right.
two need to, yeah.
Mhm.
Mom, can you say more about that? Like you talked about regulating ourselves kind of on our own in the middle of the night. What about in that real
In the
time
middle of a conversation.
In
interaction?
real
Mhm.
time. So if your child sees you just cry and fall apart because life just feels so hard and the world feels so hard, you can say, I'm feeling a lot of intense stuff.
Yeah.
And here it is. It's like right in front of you. What we want to try and do is withdraw blame and shame on them, but to be able to say, you know what? You've gone through this. You have times when you're crying and when you're feeling it's really hard. But you know what I believe? I believe our bodies have been created to help us move through it. And I sometimes I got to feel this, and sometimes you've got to feel this, and we're going to find our way through.
Yeah. When they're feeling it, when we have a child that's feeling it and they're feeling that overwhelm about what's happening, how should we help them respond? How should we respond to help them through that moment?
Well, so what, just let's take them through the steps that I was talking about, what we do for ourselves. First of all, to be able to say, let's just take a moment and see if, can we just take a minute here and see if we can slow this down a little bit? Because when we are feeling so much overwhelm, it means that things are coming back at us too much, too fast, or too long. We're going to slow it down. So let's just slow it down right now. And I get why you're upset, and I'm feeling the upset too as I feel you upset. So I'm just going to let it slow down inside of me, and I'm going to notice what I'm feeling physically in my body. And I'll tell you what I'm feeling is just like so heavy. And at the same time, my heart's beating really fast. And it feels, and sometimes that feels scary. Do you notice anything for you? And give them room for that or not. They don't have to feel it. And then say, you know what? But I am going to trust my body to feel these hard things because I really know that our bodies were made for us to get through it, not to pretend it's not there, not to try and get it to go away right away, but that we are made to be able to slow it down and walk through those hard things because just like our body metabolizes food, our body can metabolize hard emotions and feelings and thoughts and horrible things that are going on in the world. Because trauma is not just it's not what's out there coming at us, it's what we're doing inside with it.
Can I
Because those hard
piggyback?
things aren't going to go away.
Let
Mhm.
me just piggyback onto that because with younger children, you often get a discharge first. A temper tantrum,
Yeah.
breaking down and upset. And so then what you sort of want to live with that and not respond to that with anger or with anxiety, but just give them space and then have a reflective part when their ego, when their selves are back in charge. So there's often a longer process with younger children, but with adolescents, they can have the same thing. So that the reflective part is after there's been a lot of discharge, but there can still be a reflective part that looks at it. And to piggyback again on what Steffi is saying, particularly with young children, what happens in the body is always a message about what's happening inside with young children. And that is why we often look at physical things with young children, not just as some kind of physical diagnosis of something, but really a message about something that isn't in their mental sort of Rolodex yet, but it's there and it's a message. And then if you look at it together, you can figure out something together. And the partnership piece of that, which is what Steffi was talking about, is incredibly important and speaks to a relationship. So let me just add, the reason we're talking about you as parents talking to the children, they need to talk to somebody that they have a close relationship with in the middle of all of these traumatic things going on outside and the traumatic feelings inside. That doesn't mean there aren't places for children to talk to therapists and true, but to feel safe and to feel contained, they need to know their primary people are with them.
This whole, it feels like such an emphasis, both in terms of ourselves and with our children. It's noticing what's going on inside of our bodies, what's going on inside of theirs, and looking at that as information and trusting our bodies, not only to give us that information, but to be able to, Mom, you said, metabolize, and it's so interesting to me. And I feel like it's countercultural because we are taught by society, particularly as women, to actually not trust our bodies, right? Our bodies are bad. They are not to be trusted. So much of society has sent us those messages, whether it comes to relationships, it comes to food, et cetera. And I'm just thinking about how revolutionary and freeing this could actually be for us as women to recognize the power of our own bodies as receptors of the information that we need to not only like heal ourselves, but help heal our kids.
There's, in my mind, child development, the mind develops out of the body. That's why we talk about all those physical stages of development, and that's why it's always so connected.
And it is connected. We forget that our minds are part of our freaking bodies. We talked about that the other week on the podcast with Prentice Hemphill, LaFonda, Yeah. I do want to, you were speaking to that, it's so important for us to have these conversations with kids. They look to parents, they look to grandparents, whoever is chosen family, whoever is really close to them, and the importance of those relationships. Sometimes there's a need for therapy too. How I think sometimes adults, we're not necessarily sure, again, because of messages we get from society about, shame we maybe need to feel about asking for help. Um, Mom, I would actually ask you as we think about ourselves, like what signs do we look for? How can parents and caregivers know when we might be the ones who need that extra support, whether it's from a therapist, some kind of counselor, faith community leader, or any sort of outside help and resource? Because again, I think that we're not wired that way to necessarily think that we deserve that we should do that.
Shame and humiliation.
Yeah.
Right. Luckily, I think our world is changing that there's so much less stigma and shame around looking to mental health providers or natural mental health providers, whether they're
there's a girl at my gym that has a t-shirt that says therapy is cool. I'm like,
right. Yes. It is. And it's like, and I think and I'll use it in the frame that I'm talking about. When you feel like you're not able to metabolize those difficult things and they're staying stuck, then that's the time that you would want some support to be able to bring that through. Or when you're trying to make a really hard decision and you're just going around and around and perseverating. And, it's time to bring somebody in. And
So it's like when the 90-second rule isn't working, when the 90-minute rule isn't working, when the 90-hour rule isn't working, like maybe it's
90 days.
for 90 days, right?
Well, the same thing goes for kids, because what we're looking at in development is we want kids to progress. And it goes like this, it's jagged. But if a kid is feeling stuck and not able to progress, not able to do the tasks, and also not able to have some zest and joy, because childhood should have zest and joy, that might be a time to consult with somebody. And I feel like what we want to offer the kids is we want the world both to be really littler at the same time that it's bigger. Littler in that our family, our community, our safe places, and bigger in terms of certain wonder and excitement in the world, and they're not being afraid to be out in the world. And that is a huge challenge these days, but it's something we want to go for.
Yeah. I also wanted to ask, we want to help our kids feel not just, stuck in fear or anxiety about things going on in their lives or where that intersects with the world as a whole. We actually want them to feel hope. We want them to feel empowered. We want them to, how can we help nurture a sense of agency and, dare I say, optimism in our children? Or is that just hardwired?
Yes and yes and no and no. Well, first of all, I think kids really can really depend on us, and this again connects to what Steffi's saying, and will read us and what we are feeling and take it in.
Totally.
The nonverbal stuff is very big in development. They'll look at the expressions on our face and stuff. So when we're all so anxious and
It's like
depressed
they bump
about
their
the world,
toe when they bump their knee or whatever, and we're like, "Oh my God!"
Right.
then they're
Yeah,
gonna-
except we have the world on fire and it's,
Right.
oh my God.
Yeah.
So I think some of that is shrinking it down, but I also think the agency thing, kids like to be active. They like to play sports, they like to build toys, they like to have projects. And we look for a place that's sometimes connected to the world where they can do something positive and active.
Mhm.
And that is hard when we're feeling a little helpless. And that's again where we want to identify our feelings and not have that flood the environment. So you look for places that are appropriate to the stage of development. For very young children, they really just want to play and make something. And sometimes in the play, you can see what's going on with them, but they can draw a picture to send to somebody or take, and actually to have it be connected to their lives, to being kind to their peers, to doing something for somebody in their classroom and keeping it small. And I think once you get to older ages, they can participate in the world in very productive ways.
Yeah.
I think the community of kids in adolescence can do really wonderful things. And sometimes I've had, kids that I've worked with that wanted to start a new kind of club, to collect food or to make blankets, to do things. And those things are incredibly important, not only in that they're doing something nice, but the feeling of mastery. And children feel so good when they master something. So that's what we look for.
LaFonda, I want to make sure we give folks, there's been some really good questions I've seen coming in the chat.
Yeah.
So make sure we turn that over. But so I'm going to give you the last question before we get out of the way. Julianne to ask some more questions.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I want to ask, we ask this question a lot on the podcast, and I just want to ask, what is giving you hope right now about how families and kids are adapting and finding strength in difficult times?
I'll tell you something that's giving me hope about the world is that I don't know if this ever happens to you, but when I feel so taken up by all of whatever's going on in the world and with myself, I can be like not paying attention to the cashier at the grocery store or to the delivery guy or to somebody that is out on the road. And I find that what gives me hope is to connect with whoever I interact with and go, how are you doing? how, and somebody will say, this is a sucky day, at the grocery store. And I go, oh, when do you get off?
Mhm.
It's just like being able to feel like I am part of a larger world,
Yeah.
that we are all connected, without even having to do a volunteer community thing, but just
Mhm.
simply the power of connection with wherever I go really makes me feel like the world isn't just such a bad place. There is
Yeah.
so much good in the
Yeah.
world.
Like each of those conversations are like an invitation to restore faith in humanity,
Yeah.
Yes.
like one by one.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
that's, I
feel
Well,
love
and I
absolutely
love what you
connected.
just said, Steffi, and I was thinking a little bit along the same lines. People want to, I think it gives you hope if you see other people as people, to shrink it down to
Mm.
size. When I go to a store and somebody holds the door for me or lets me go ahead in line because I only have two things,
Yeah.
you just feel good. And when you do that for
for others.
somebody else, you feel good. So
Yeah.
I think for me, it's living smaller and having that have a lot of meaning to me, living in my life, living in our own lives. The big world is out there. We can't change many things, or we're working. And I will say this community is a way of feeling good and active, but we have a lot of power in our daily life just to live our lives and have it have meaning. And I would also like to add, when you have a great conversation with your child, the once in every 10 years when that happens, it makes you feel great and it gives you a lot of hope. So I would say our children give us a lot of hope, and
Mm.
what you're doing now and thinking about all these things is really a productive and wonderful thing, a gift to everybody.
And to expand on that about the hope, when you do have a good conversation, sense into your body and really anchor it with the sensations that go with that. Like
Mhm,
sometimes I just get goosebumps when I have a really
Yeah.
good conversation,
mhm,
or even when, like yesterday, my brother-in-law was giving us this sleep sofa, and it turned out that the delivery guy couldn't fit it into the room in our house, so we had to give
mhm.
it back to him. And I said, "Can you give this to somebody that needs it?" And he goes, "I know somebody that really could use this." And I
Oh.
just thought, "You've made my day." And it sucks that it won't fit in our house, but it really, you made my day to think that this really nice sleep sofa is going to go to someone
Yeah.
and you're going to do that.
And we
It's,
can have two opposite feelings at the same time.
Yes.
yeah.
Yep.
I
Yep.
really wanted that couch.
There you
I
go.
really wanted that
But I'm
couch.
really happy for someone else.
Exactly. Okay.
I
And
love
I
it
just got to say, I think those small exchanges actually are no small thing. I mean, the whole
at all.
project of the bigger of what we're up against right now, their whole project is to divide us all and turn us all against one
Hmm.
another.
And Katie, it's your expression. This is about Katie's expression when for red, wine, and blue. When they go low, we go local. And
Hey,
let's go local, you guys, in
there you
our
go.
whole everywhere we go.
The
You know
local
what
in our
gives me hope when
feeling.
I've learned my mom is actually listening to me. I love it.
It's all those conversations you had.
Yes,
Yep.
exactly.
Yep.
Okay, Julie Collins, I am going to get out of the frame here. I'm going to let Julie take over because I know people have been sharing in the chat, and I'm excited for you to get to share that and to share Debbie and Steffi with
Well,
the
I mean,
Q&A.
honestly, as I was taking these questions, I'm like, okay, there's like at least four more sessions with these two ladies that we need to have because there's all these different things. And then my kids are in their 30s. And literally right now, they're at the second funeral in 3 weeks for someone who has taken their life. And so, and
Wow.
I had another conversation with a young 20 something a couple of days ago, and they were feeling that way. And I directed them to services. But this is a really big topic all the way around, starting from the little ones on up. So we'll start with the little ones. Someone asked about their daughter, and how do they have talks with their little toddler daughter as she grows about how she has less agency over her body than we had. That she doesn't have the same. Um, with the removal of row and things, what that she doesn't have those same um, opportunities and things that we had. How do moms now navigate that?
Well, I think you start where, I mean, you're looking towards the future, which is good, but again, it's a building block thing. And the first thing we want to do with a toddler is help them have agency over their body, where they can control their bowel movements, they can control where they sit, they can control how they eat. And it makes them feel powerful that they can do that, so that when they get older and come up against the social winds that are pushing back, they can say, you actually know, and this is a body thing, Steffi, you actually know how what is your own body and what your body feels, and you can work towards rectifying what has gone wrong. And you can have strength in that. But it is, it sort of shifts from the individual to the world, but it starts with the individual. And if they can feel in themselves that they have agency, they will not feel as helpless in what happened with Roe. They will feel that they don't have to be helpless because they actually are in control of their own bodies to the degree that we're talking about feeling them who they are themselves, their muscle. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Okay.
Absolutely. So then, as our kids start to get a little bit, older, that school age time, how do parents manage what kids are finding online, on videos on YouTube and video programming other place? How do they manage that? Because there's a lot out there that isn't even true for starters, and then there's even with the stuff that is true, that's you know hard enough.
Yeah.
So how do parents manage that?
Well, this is the question of this era. And I think there's a whole bunch of things. First of all, I think again, relationship and talking to your children about what they might see, what they might hear, and how we sort it out is incredibly important. But I think there's another piece of this that kids have, particularly in development, they have a can't stop feeling. And we all have it. We're looking at our things all the time. And one of the things we're working for is not that we control it, but that we help them start to control it. And that is a long process. But again, I'm going back to what Steffi says. Kids can identify in their bodies and in their mind when it's too much. And it's letting them recognize it in themselves so that they can start to modulate that. Now that takes a long time and it takes a lot of development. But development is long, thank goodness. We have lots of chances to do it. I think the media piece of this is very hard because there's so much in the media that's out there to seduce people and bring them in. But you can talk to your children about that and help them identify when it feels like that to them. It again, in their mind and in their bodies, there is a feeling when a kid has too much, either that it's overexcited, overstimulated, or that they're totally shut down, trying not to have that. And it's noticing what's going on with them. So the conversations you have with children starting when they're young, that's what you build on. That's why, and it's never too late. I mean, as long as you can have a conversation about it that's mutual, not a lecture and not a moral thing. When we come in saying it's a bad thing, that you're doing the wrong thing, you're going to lose them and it isn't fair to them. It's
Mhm.
not about what right and wrong. It's about what is actually good for them, healthy for them, and feels right and feels good. So that's sort of my thought about that. I hope that helps some.
Um, so let's talk about mom guilt real quick for a second. Someone
Mm.
asked, how do you deal with mom guilt, especially regarding anxiousness? The person felt anxious. They said they got it from their mom, and grandma had it too. Generationally, they feel like things are always blamed on moms. How do we get around that? Because I think that, at some point, I mean, I know I have in the past, we all as moms kind of feel like, oh, did we do enough? Did we not? Should we have done more over here? Should we have done less? How do we navigate through that?
I
Steffi,
think
you want to
one,
take it?
well, I think one thing that's been helpful to, first of all, we will never, as moms, get away from feeling guilty. I mean, it is just, and, and, um, I think that instead of trying to convince myself that I am totally guilty and have done a horrible job the whole way through, or convince myself that I've really been really terrific and it's just the kids that are complaining, is that it's a both and, right? I mean, we come to this doing the best we can. And I think I've really screwed up a lot. And I think I've also done some good things, but I'm not going to be able to do it all well. And I think the thing that just helps me is to have more compassion towards myself about not shaming myself, that that's where the guilt comes from, is this internal shame that we have. And I can't I've made a ton of mistakes. I can only, and it's not like saying, "Oh, it really wasn't that bad," or you did your best. I am convinced that there have been times I've done my best and it ended up being a really shitty job. It did not go well, and I'm mad at myself for it. But we are human beings, and I think that that's the very best that we can do. What do you think, Deb?
I think that's great. And I also think in our making the mistakes and not being perfect, we're better parents. We're not Stepford wives. It's not paint by number. We're being real people, being parents, and we make mistakes, and it gives kids permission to make mistakes. But the other thing is, I think there's a mythology. If you do everything right, it comes out right. And if something went wrong, it's because we did it wrong. That's not respecting the kids as people. They've got
Right.
their own genetics, their own history, their own complexities. And I think the more we feel like we can't affect something, the more we feel guilty like we should affect something. Parenthood is a developmental stage. We're not going to get it all right, and that's not what we're supposed to do. And the person that wrote the thing about the generations of anxiety, how wonderful that you're identifying what's been passed down. Because once you identify it, you can put it outside of you and look, wait a minute. This isn't my anxiety. Maybe it's their anxiety, and sort of hand it back to the source sometimes. That's just another thing that happens. And with parents, there's nothing like becoming a parent to remember what it was like to be a child and what it was like to have our parents. So everything gets tumbled up. But I'm thinking the biggest thing about being a parent is just be a human being.
So you all talked a lot about, how do we deal with things in the 90 seconds, 90 days, 90, all of that was discussed. But how do we turn off to go to sleep sometimes? Sometimes on
Oh,
these bad days, that's really tough to do. That's what someone mentioned, and I have the same kind of issue, or I'm turning something around, or I'm having the conversation five different ways. How do we stop that? How do we turn that off?
Well, again, my four-step idea is I don't think that you can turn it off, but I think that you can slow it down and allow yourself to feel in your body what that's like to have it turn over and over. And maybe what it feels like is just a tremendous heaviness, and to sense into that and slow it down and accept that that is part of all of it and that our body can actually metabolize that we can feel that the hardness of it, not trying to solve it, like going over 1,000 times, what can I do to make my kid feel better? Or what can I do about this mistake that I made? But simply to feel the grief or the sorrow or the fear and to let my body metabolize it. I
to
think
add
we
to
can
the,
get to the other side.
yeah, and I think it because our lives are so busy and we're so reactive and responsible, we often do delay that piece that Steffi's talking about until the middle of the night. And
Mhm.
if it's possible to know all of this, to look at this during the day, it actually can help with sleep. To
Yeah,
know what you really feel, to know what you're really anxious about, so that it isn't going to come up. And I think what I always feel in the middle of the night is something that was there all day just came up and bit me.
absolutely.
And if you can identify it during the day, listen, if we can do that 50% of the time, I consider that 100% success,
I
but
agree.
to try and know that. And then We had a death in the family, and my sister lost her husband, and it's been very tough. And I was talking to her about how to get to sleep, and she's grieving. I said, sometimes when I can't get to sleep, I figure out what I'm going to have for breakfast tomorrow morning, and spend a lot of time thinking about scrambled eggs. Sometimes it's really helpful to just neutralize something a little bit. Though in the middle of the night, if it comes and bites you, you got Steffi's not 90-second program.
Just one last thing, and this is too big of a topic really to tackle probably tonight, but there are several people who have children or grandchildren who are, college age and older, and they're dealing with, or even high school age, and they're dealing with these ICE raids and this horrific racism that we're seeing across the country. And they're wondering because, someone's grandson was thinking of, being violent towards ICE, which is, scary to them, scary to me too. Where are some places that maybe we can find to help some folks that are maybe going through some of these bigger issues?
Oh, that's a good closer. I think the issue with ICE and all of that is there is a reality going on that's close to home. It's one thing, and listen, the shootings are terrible, but we can protect children some by saying it's not close to home. But when it's close to home, everybody's anxiety is high. And one of the things about the aggression, MAD covers fear, MAD covers sad. So one of the things is to go to, again, the negative feelings they're feeling and really identifying it so that it doesn't have to get translated into an angry, violent thing, which we've all felt at different times. But in kids, where the regulation isn't so good and there's a different balance between what's on inside of them and their personalities that are developing, you want to help acknowledge the reality of it, but the reality not just of what's happening, but what it's making them feel. And then see where you are. That's my first crack at that. I got to think more about that. It's a tough one.
One other thing that I think about is noticing the helpers. That
Yeah.
if you are
Mr. Brad.
ever, if there's stories about people that are getting in and helping people with the ICE raids, just to notice that and to point that out. Look at that over there. We saw lots of people in Charlotte that were helping with the ICE raids, and just to notice the helpers, to see that it's not, people are not in total isolation.
That's great. And that Mr. Rogers always said, find the helpers. And for a kid that is feeling vulnerable to it, it's actually to find the helpers, to find the resource people, to find the people that would protect them. And that is something actually that parents can work on for their children. That is a very protective thing.
We are the majority in that view. People are not happy with what's happening with ICE. I plan to tell my kids tonight how American support for immigrants in this country is actually at an all-time high. That
Yeah.
was new data that came out
That's
today,
great.
and I plan to share good news to remind them
You
that
bet.
we are the majority. Um, Thank you.
I love doing this.
Mom, thank you. Julie, LaFonda, thank you so much. I just love being with all of you and with
Love being
everyone
with
who's joined
you.
us tonight. Thank you. One more thing I want to say is that, at Red, Wine, and Blue, we held across the country this year over 4,000 events.
Mhm.
And most of those were in person, but so many online as well. And what we want to make sure, those are going to slow down a little bit. Just over the next couple of weeks, we'll be back with hope and fear and no, not fear,
Not fair.
fierceness, hope and fierceness.
Against fear.
Yes, I mean, we may be scared, but we're going to do all this anyway. And in the new year, but between now and then, we want you to know that you can always be in touch. And the best way to do that these days is by getting on the Red, White, and Blue app. We've got all kinds of different ways to engage in real time as a community. If you're feeling something that you want to find, get advice from others or just connect about, get on the Red, Wine, and Blue app. Y'all, there's almost 30,000 of us already there, and it just launched a couple months ago, and it's becoming a really beautiful space where you can get resources to support organizing in your community, learning about different issues, finding others to connect with in real life, but also having those online spaces so that we can be there maybe even when you're up in the middle of the night and somebody else might be too. So anyway, we love this community. Thank you to my mom and my mother-in-law, Steffi and Debbie, for joining us, and to all of you. And everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you for being here.
Have a great night, you guys.